So, hello and welcome to the launch of the Association of Corporate Executive Austin San Antonio Roundtable, or as we're calling it, CEASAR. This is an invitation-only roundtable and network series, and it's exclusively for ACG and invited C-suite and business owners of growth-oriented companies in the Austin-San Antonio area. I'm Carrie Vanston. I'm the Ambassador's Officer for ACG, and I'm also the CEO of Alligator Wrangler, where I help executives who kind of up to their necks in alligators get out and get mindsets full of opportunities. We at ACG have really wanted to have a space where growth-oriented CEOs and C-suites and owners could just really come together and share the challenges and opportunities of growing companies in a peer-supported environment. And this is especially important during these COVID-19 days where we're opening and reopening and all of the uncertainties that are tied in with that. Each month we are planning on having a meeting each time we'll have a short presentation and discussion by a leader in the CEO field, CEO C-suite of interest. We'll have, following that, we'll have questions and discussions, and then we'll break out in a couple of group breakouts immediately after that each time. We'll be going from 12 to 1:15. Today we're going to have Kurt Wilkin, and I'll introduce him in just a minute. In addition, we're going to have a mastermind 2 weeks after each meeting, and this will be kind of for those that wanted to dive in a little bit deeper. The first mastermind will be July 14th at 12 to 1:30, and we'll send a registration link on that soon. We are going to be recording this meeting, so just so you know that. We're particularly excited to have you here today because you'll help us choose the direction we're going to go to in the future. So please, give us your suggestions, give us, really where you want this to go and who you want to bring with us as we go forward. In this regard, please be sure to put your contact information and your comments into the chat room. Sarah Singer is here. She is our ACG executive, and she's going to be helping in the background. Thank you so much, Sarah, for all your help in putting this together. One of our past presidents, Pat Niekamp, is here, and we're so excited to have you back. Thanks for coming. And then Susan Vaughn is our executive vice president, and I'm going to give the floor over to Susan so she can tell you just a little bit about ACG and all the things we're doing.
Thank you, Carrie, and thanks for all the hard work you've put into putting this roundtable together. Welcome, everybody. I hope you, your families, and your businesses are doing well in this time of challenges and opportunities. So we're going to talk about some of the ways to find more challenges and more opportunities than challenges, that is. I just wanted to take a minute and kind of refresh most of us. I think all but just a couple of us are members of ACG, but wanted to just kind of refresh all of us on some of the benefits of being a member that maybe we have forgotten about or maybe weren't aware of. And ACG, both globally and locally, has done a fantastic job of being innovative during this time and keeping members connected, providing content, providing news and trends, and advocacy. So I'm so proud of our organization, top down and especially at the local level, for all that they've done. There are so many resources online for you, so I encourage you to go to the website and look at the full menu of webinars. There is Growth TV, which is a new feature for ACG that has some great interviews. There are webinars from all over the country, chapters all over the country that normally we wouldn't have the opportunity to visit in on, but now from the comfort of our homes, we can virtually visit any chapter that we choose. And then on top of that, as you work your way through the ACG network, for whatever business or personal reasons you may have, just keep in mind that that network is expansive globally. not just restricted to our chapter. And you have the benefit, unlike a lot of other associations, of being able to go into the chapter directory and not only the chapter, but the global directory and find any person or resource there and connect with them directly. That's a privilege that doesn't exist in a lot of organizations. The other thing I might mention is, if you don't know, we have some access to PitchBook that's available to members. So if you're in need of that kind of intelligence, don't overlook that opportunity. But again, thank you for being here today. We're really excited to offer something new and fresh. And Carrie's worked really hard. And Kurt, thank you so much for being here with us. As an aside, Kurt helped us with a local chapter event, 2 of them recently. And if you missed them, please go back online and take a look. It was the CPG landscape, both from an owner-operator perspective and from an investor perspective, and they were excellent. So lots of great content there. Thanks again, everyone, and enjoy.
Thank you, Susan. We are so excited to have Kurt Wilkin as our first presenter and discussion leader today. Kurt is a CEO at HireBetter and Managing Director for BK Capital. He's passionate about entrepreneurship. He's active angel investor, and he sits on the boards of several companies and nonprofits. Kurt has extensive experience growing, scaling, and exiting high growth companies and helping leaders unlock their own success. He is presently leading several masterminds, and we're just thrilled to have him for our first guest so we can get some ideas from him on running these future sessions. So, Kurt, welcome.
Awesome. Carrie, thank you so much. And I like leader of the discussion much better than presenter. So hopefully you guys are okay with that. I'd like to, in just a couple minutes, I'd like to go around the table and learn a little bit about each other. I think one of the things you guys are wanting out of this is some networking as well as some peer communication. And that's really one of the biggest things I've seen through this whole pandemic is how we can learn from each other. So I thought I might give you just a bit of a background on what I've been doing over the last 13 weeks. And I'll give you a little bit of a framework for what I'd like to go through today, because I think we can all learn from it. So like all of us back in March, spring break, everything was quickly closing down, and I'm in the recruiting business, so you can imagine hiring stopped pretty substantially, and so I knew that no one was going to be hiring for a while, just completely off a cliff. And so I started thinking about what I could do to help in that time. And so I'm a connector by trade, and I'm also a decent facilitator, and I'm in YPO, so I get so much out of my peer-to-peer forum experience. So I created these CEO forums. I sent out invites to, I don't know, about 100 people and asked them if they'd be interested in participating in a weekly discussion, 90 minutes each, and got a lot of positive response. Ended up having about 50 people. So we have 4 forums of about, we'd like to keep them relatively small, 11 or 12 people in each. And so we go every week for 90 minutes. A couple of weeks ago, we shifted to every other week because I think people needed a little bit of a break. But it's been very, very powerful. So if nothing else, and Christine Bryant, hey Christine, Christine's actually a member of one of them, so I'd love, she can give you some perspective as well. But for the first few weeks, I brought in an expert to talk about a topic of the day for 30 minutes of the 90 minutes. And we got some out of that, but really most of it, I think, is around having a peer group that you can share challenges and opportunities with. It's been really amazing seeing the wide range of people's experiences with COVID. I'm sure you guys all can relate. One week you're top of the world because you figured something out and you're getting some business, or your kids graduated, or whatever the case may be. And the next week you lost your big client and you feel like the world is lost. And I think just having a group of folks who have gotten to know you over the course of a few weeks and can commiserate with you, can prop you up, can help you, be an ear to talk to, is so powerful. So that's a little bit of the background. We brought in people like people from a guy from Baker Tilly, Matt Kasha, to talk about PPP back in the early days. We brought in a consultant from Transcend to talk about how we can use this as an opportunity to be stronger coming out of this, so how to play offense. We brought in people to talk about communication and leadership. We talked to people about employee engagement, because those have been topics as we go through this virtual environment. We brought in Beth Goff-McMillan from SKG to talk about going back to the office and what that might look like. We brought in a guy to talk about the M&A market. And this week, we're bringing in somebody from Leadership Austin, Christopher Kennedy, to talk about beyond diversity and how our businesses are going to be impacted and how we should respond and discuss racial diversity in the workplace. So as you can see, a lot of stuff that's been thrown at us in a very short period of time. So that's what I'd like to talk a little bit today, some of those experiences. And I would like to hear from you about some of the things that you guys have been seeing. You may have noticed as this started coming out, I realized that this is 44 people we're impacting, but there's a broader audience that could benefit from this as well. So I started writing and blogging about this. So you'll see some things out there. I'm calling it survival and thrival, because I want everybody to come out of this stronger. And then we, about maybe 8 weeks ago, people asked me to do a LinkedIn Live session with some of the same type of learning. So my stock intro is basically, we wanted to take the learnings and experiences of these 44 CEOs and help a much broader audience not just survive this, but come out of it stronger. So that's the theme you'll hear from me across the board. So with that as a backdrop, would you guys mind if we go around the horn and introduce each other? And I'll ask you one ice-breaking question. So we'll try to keep it relatively quick. We have until 12:50. So if you'll humor me, I'd like to, if you give me your name and your company, and just a really quick snapshot about your family so we get that perspective, because you can't, there's no separation right now of work and life, right? It's all the same thing. And then normally I would say give me your highs and lows, and we'll have a little broader conversation. But since we're pressed for time, I'm just going to ask you, tell me one thing that's on your mind today. And I'll start, since it's my game, if that helps. We have 16 people or 14 people, so we'll try to get there pretty quick. So Kurt Wilkin, CEO of HireBetter. I've been married for 21 years now to Carrie, and I've got different Carrie, and I've got 3 teenage boys, a 19-year-old, a 17-year-old, and a 13-year-old, all somewhat quarantining at home. And the one thing on my mind today is, man, can they throw us another curveball? Everything seems to be just raining curveballs on us. We've got, new things seems like every day. It's kind of like Teflon, just bounces off my back, and how can I get back up and keep fighting? So that would be my intro. Susan, can I throw it to you and ask you to give me a really quick intro like that as well?
Sure, happy to do it. Again, Susan Vaughn, I'm with Insperity. So I have a husband, Paul. I have 3 grown children that I won't tell you how old they are, because then I'll be telling my real age. And then I have 3 grandchildren, so and 2 Persian cats. We're empty nesters, so it's just us and the cats, and so that's been pretty easy relative to what a lot of people are trying to manage. I think the thing that's on my mind right now is how to create a little bit of personal space and personal well-being in the middle of all that's going on. Our work has been extremely busy from a client maintenance standpoint. So you put that together with all that's going on a personal level, family, and trying to bring on new business at the same time. Just keeping that balance is a little tricky.
I appreciate that, Susan, and that's exactly what I'd like to get out of this, guys, because this is a networking group, right? So we'll learn a little bit more about each other, and there's been 2 huge things that have come out of this for me, and you might relate. It's that we are moving from this element of professionalism to personalism. Most of us are at our homes, and we've got dogs and cats and kids running up. So that's one thing. The other is this concept of moving from a B2B, B2C type of arrangement to a H to H, human to human. And as we see each other as human on this call, we understand I'm not going to go try to sell Susan something. I'm going to see how I can help her as a human being, and that might lead to sales, but that's just how we should be these days. So thank you for that, Susan. Carrie.
Hi, I'm Carrie Vanston, and as I said, I'm very involved with ACG, of course, and with this at the moment. I'm the CEO of the Alligator Wrangler, and I help people that are up to their necks in alligators get out of that pit and move on to higher growth mindsets that lead to great opportunities. In this season, I have a lot of people just too tied up to really get a whole lot of new business. So I've been focusing on how to try to help people get out of that alligator pit. So I came up with tips for getting people out of that alligator pit, that COVID-19 alligator pit, and I've been giving presentations all over town on that. Happy to give anyone who's interested in that one for their organization. I've been doing Rotary clubs and association and the Austin Technology Council, blah, blah, blah. And then I also wrote an article that was in Texas CEO magazine about it. So I've been really focusing on, really trying to help people kind of get that uncertainty, get by that uncertainty. Oh, and I have 11-year-old and a 15-year-old boys who are out of school, and I'm wondering what in the world is going to happen next semester.
Yep. All right, thank you, Carrie. Jay, how about yourself?
I'm Jay Powers. My wife, I, and dog live up here in Georgetown and enjoying life up here. I have a son who's a pilot with Southwest Airlines, so we worry about him every day as he lives in Charlotte with our 2 grandchildren. I have a daughter, and the rest of my family, my mom, my brother, and sister, are down in South Florida. Professionally, I was the former CFO of Active Power in town, and then I recently completed a CFO role for Roadwire. It's a company headquartered here in Austin that is in the automotive aftermarket business. So I'm really looking at this time and what we're involved in and how to take these uncertain times and make it transformational for myself, both professionally and personally, to really make the best of the opportunities that this change and uncertainty is presenting.
I love it. Thank you for that, Jay. David Turpin.
I'm on. Hi, I'm Dave Turpin. Married. They have 2 adult children. One is a professor at Baylor, and the other is a pastor in Washington, D.C., although he's recently accepted to go to Amman, Jordan sometime next year once the details are sorted out and take over as the senior pastor of a church there and take our 2 very small grandchildren with him. We're not really crazy about missing the grandkids, but we'll get over it. My wife and I took our only grandchild when she was 4 months old to France for 3 years, so we don't have a lot of moral high ground for taking kids away to another country. Professionally, when you have your company sold out from under you and taken over, you wind up doing something else. I was the treasurer of a Fortune 500 company and the CFO of their standalone real estate company. And then about 10 years ago, that disappeared. So I wound up doing some advisory work, got into a little partnership. The partnership didn't last, but the net result was I also own Manja Pizza restaurant here in town. Let me assure you, the restaurant business is not one of the best business to be in during a pandemic. Among the things on my mind are how do I restart some of the projects which were in the wings just before this started in terms of advisory work, and along with Kurt, what is going to be next in a particular business when the model has changed so much? Compared to most other restaurants, I think we're probably doing exceptionally well. We're down maybe 25-30% in total revenue. And we've learned a little bit about changing a few work and operational patterns. They're not going to be as much as I want them to be. So the big thing on my mind is what happens when some of the extra money we've accumulated runs out, if this thing is still going on and people's behavior patterns haven't shifted.
That sounds like a good topic that we can cover as we go through this today, Dave, and even in the small groups, talk about kind of after PPP, if you will. But I like the mindset of making this a positive, and how can we, and I like to say that flat is the new 20% growth. Kind of say the same thing, 20% down is about flat. So you're doing well when you think about it that way, and hopefully you'll have some efficiencies coming out of this stronger.
We'll
I think it's Bill, is it Bill? Exactly. Bill, is it Bill Leak or William Leak?
Usually Bill, although I'll answer to many things if, paying clients who have not asked for a discount can pretty much call me whatever they want. So I'm Bill Leake, and I'm the CEO of Apogee Results, which is a digital consultancy. One of the things we've done in the pandemic is we've actually started to take the steps that I've been wanting to for years to actually create a venture studio out of it. One of the issues I have with Austin is we're fairly good at incubating businesses. We're not terribly good at scaling businesses as a town. It's sort of something we don't like to talk about, as we beat on our chest and think we're so special. And my firm's been scaling businesses successfully for ages. And we make 7-figure businesses, 8-figure businesses, and 8-figure businesses, 9 figures. And a lot of times these days, the code is the easy part. It's the growth that's the hard part. And so I'm having a lot of fun. I'm crazy. I'm writing checks and launching new ventures in the midst of the pandemic, but it's fun as heck. Getting the right balance on that is tricky. And particularly since I'm the primary parent of the 2 last kids that I have left that are in the house with me most of the time. Have a bunch of kids. Some are grown and gone. Have my second grandchild that should arrive in the week. But then I still have a 13 and 16-year-old upstairs. So trying to balance the complicated set of life with how do we recover from a pandemic when I'm no longer used to going to the gym that is the office. And I've got to develop that muscle memory to get to the point where my employees and team members can follow my lead. I'm out of the habit of going to the office. I love being in my backyard and my acreage and my animals. So.
I love it. By the way, when you say a bunch of kids, our minds race to 13, 20. How many kids are we talking about here?
No, I only acknowledge 7. and that's without being LDS or Catholic or Orthodox Jew. So I don't quite know how it happened as a Presbyterian.
Perfect. All right, Lori, how about you?
Hi, I'm Nish, and I am Vice President of Strategy for Blacklight Solutions. And we build modernized data-driven web applications for middle market companies to help them grow. I have a 10-year-old son, and right now his name is Jack, and what's on my mind is Jack wants a dog, and I can't imagine trying to train a puppy and work, and because we're actually still pretty busy right now through all of this, or get an older dog. And the other thing that's on my mind is school next year, and what that's going to look like, and it seems it's going to be at home, and hopefully it's better than the last semester when they're at school. Also we're going into our second quarter strategy session, and we're weighing different options because, I never studied strategy during a pandemic, and so we're having to pivot a lot and set and lower expectations all across the board. So it's going to be interesting next week to see kind of where we land.
I wanted to really thank Lori because she is the one that brought Blacklight Solutions on. She apparently started working there recently, and she was familiar with ACG, and she got the CEO, Chance Colby, to come on board, and she's coming in as the representative today. So thank you so much, Lori.
I've been involved with ACG 20 years. I was actually on the board of the Portland chapter for many years. So, happy to be back.
Awesome. Welcome. Pat, how about yourself? Hey, you're muted, Pat.
Yep, I just clicked the unmute button. I'm Pat Niekamp. Many of you know me as the founder of Texas CEO magazine, and I sold it last year to Joel Trammell. And I could not be happier to have done that last year and be out of the mainstream of business. Since then, I have joined. It's interesting that you mention Christopher Kennedy as leader of Leadership Austin. I am working as a fellow for Leadership Austin, where they match semi-retired or fully retired individuals with nonprofits. And I have been working with 2 nonprofits in the last couple of years And right now I created a leadership academy at communities in schools for their 200 plus employees. And it's been a wonderful program, and you don't really know how much you know until you have to teach it to someone else. And so that's what I have been doing for the last 2 years. Before CIS, I worked with Hospice Austin. I, along with being a past president of ACG Austin San Antonio, am also a current member of the board of directors of the organization. And a few weeks ago, I was honored to be asked to hold the very first statewide webinar where we discussed the current state of deal making across Texas. And we had speakers from San Antonio, from Houston, and from Dallas. And I worked with all 3 chapters and their leadership to put the event together, and it was carried live a few weeks ago. And I suspect it's still recorded and parked someplace. I see Sarah's head nodding. If you want to go listen to what's happening in the current world of deal making, with some pretty interesting stuff and very insightful. I have been married for 45 years to Ray Niekamp, and I have 2 grandchildren, ages 6 and 8.
Awesome. Thank you, Pat. Thank you, Pat. Andy.
Hi, team. I'm Andy Fogarasi. You might know me or not from a company I grew here in Austin for about 12 years, up to about 20 million. It's in the parts operation, kind of along the line of J Powers. At its end, we were shipping about 3,000 parts per day, or orders per day. But my family life right now is with my wife, Susan, and my daughter, Leah, 11 years old. She's also wanting a dog. We're testing out a 5-year-old German Shepherd right now for a friend to see if we can manage a real dog. Right now, I'm at a pivot point as well. You might notice the little picture of a sailboat behind me. We had planned a family adventure, actually started about 10 years ago. And that family adventure was going to put us on the coast of France and my daughter in a French school and all of us living in a sailboat. And then COVID. Sailboat, harbors, that kind of life, that kind of fantastic life we kind of dreamed about isn't really realistic during COVID. The idea of trying to take a day trip to another port and they not letting you in doesn't work. So I mentioned my pivot point. I'm here in Austin. And that means time to figure out what we can do in Austin, how I can reconnect. I'm resurrecting my old consulting company, Austin Beta. And my biggest challenge right now is trying to reconnect, build up my network with folks around. My specialty, e-commerce, operations, and supply chain. In my little business that I grew to 20 million, we were able to scale, like I said, to 3,000 orders a day, 5 parts per order, so 15,000 parts going out a day, about 80% complete. So scaling in e-commerce and operations, which is, I think is going to be very key for the near future, is a place I can hopefully be helpful to other folks while we figure out what we're going to do with the rest of our lives.
Awesome. Thank you, Andy. And Andy's one of the favorites of the HireBetter team. He was on our LinkedIn Live the other day, and my team raved about him. So appreciate that, Andy. All right, Charu.
Hey, hi, Chris. How are you? Kurt. So it's interesting. I used to work for Kurt almost 15 years ago. Kurt, hope you remember me.
Yes, sir.
2005, 2006, or 2006, 2007. So journey is long, almost 25 years journey to reach here. I own now 2 companies. One is the InnoSec Corporation, which is an information security compliance corporation, growing very rapidly, signing deals as you speak. Even during the COVID-19, we are doing very well. Another company, which is Secure Retain, that we just added the name a month ago, which is our e-learning platform. 2 years in making. It wasn't planned from COVID-19 perspective, but we are going live. We also signed a deal with a $6 billion company to market it in 140 countries. We're operationalizing that dream basically. Also, during last 2 days, some of the banks have shown interest in it. So I think we're doing very well on that front in the e-learning market too. It's a full-fledged, it's not awareness, it's full-fledged training platform driven by awareness, retention, and sustainability. Is mainly to solve the problems of various organizations in the security space. Also help them to, take care of the challenges. There is a lot of misinformation out there, and these courses are very designed, purposefully designed to solve certain aspects. With that being said, currently one of the areas which we are focusing on is a digital presence. We are revamping almost every website we have. We are converting it's what we call 3-click, 4-click journey, which is really you want to buy something, get something, you don't click more than 3 times, 4 times, and you get to know what you want. Then second thing is we are also optimizing our SEO, everything whereby we can work in the social platforms very well. That's our focus currently. With that being said, my daughter, which is in the college in genetics, since she's in genetics, I understand what's going on in COVID-19 world very, very well. She speaks the language of genetics, tells me what's happening around, what's going around. And my wife, who actively works with me on all the projects, she's a part and parcel of my business now, managing entire aspect, a team of at least 13 people under her, doing a lot of different activities. So that's how we are passing the days. But I would say that COVID-19 allowed us to look back or look what we are trying to do and reorganize ourselves from the next phase, of a multi-million-dollar corporation, which we think we will be very soon. So that's where we are. Thank you, Kurt.
Awesome. Yeah, you bet. Thank you, Chiru. You gave us a couple things to think about there. I'll summarize everything as we go. Christine Bryant, would you mind tell us a bit about yourself?
I can do that. I was born and raised in Austin. I have been married to a lovely man named Sterling for 11 years now. We have a 7-year-old son named Jackson and a 5-year-old daughter named Ruby. And I also have a 4.5-year-old company called Gladiator Consulting, which is just about like having another child. It requires about as much time and about as much energy, and I lose about as much sleep over it. We do business planning and strategic marketing, and our primary market sectors are technology companies and professional services organizations. And then I am not thinking about school this fall, because until our district makes some decisions and shares some information with us, there is nothing that I can do about making our own plan. And so I am working really hard to not worry about things that I cannot control. And so what I am thinking about is, how do I prioritize my own mental and physical well-being and also encourage my team to do the same?
Well, you hit on a couple of topics that I want to make sure we address, so thank you. Good stuff. All right, John Spencer.
Hey, good afternoon. You hear me okay?
Sir.
Good. So I'm John Spencer. I'm the president and founder of Clear Direction. It's a consulting firm. It's based around the concept of fractional vice president of sales. So for a lot of years, I've been doing leadership in Fortune 500 companies, and now I get to work in Austin. I have usually 2 to 4 companies where I'm the sales leader. Right now, I'm also the president of one of them. And what it allows them to do is have fractional leadership come in. That fractional could be 3 months, 6 months, it could be 18 months, whatever the company needs to scale. And it allows them to basically build around me. And actually what I'm doing is building for the team typically. The scenario is usually a $5 to $50 million revenue company. The CEO's outgrown their ability to work in their company, which is good. They should be working on their company. And so they bring us in my case, myself, build the infrastructure. That could be anything from an incentive plan, hiring and firing the right people, right seats, right? Making sure there's integration with marketing. I heard somebody talk about marketing. I think it was you, Christine, and some other folks here. So I don't do the marketing part, but I make sure it's integrated in what they're doing with their strategy. And it's any business segment. My background, I was an Air Force officer for 10 years, and I was hired in through GE's leadership program, and I got into their electrical division lighting, right? So that's what I did for 20 years, was dealt with the electrical channel to a large degree, building companies and channels. And if you use lighting, which we all do, which is great about that industry, driving the incumbent technology to LED with a company called Cree, where we took the channel from 80 to 800 million in about 3 years. And then they sold that company subsequently to another company. So that's what I started doing, is helping these small companies, again, under $50 million, all the way down to 3 million. I lived here in Austin now for 7 years, moved here from Chicago for tax purposes. I have 3 kids, 2 in college, whatever that means right now. One that's graduated is computer science. He moved home last weekend because they're all working remote, so why not save rent? So the house is full again. It's ironic, right? You always think, you know, you have these ideas of what you're going to be doing, but COVID's had an interesting impact that way as well. So it was interesting laying down the contract for what that's going to be. But you know, what's on my mind always is, how do I keep these businesses moving forward? How do I keep people employed? We went through the furlough layoff phase. We were able to bring people back on the Austin business, some of the Austin businesses. And then my other business is headquartered out of Raleigh, but it's a national business, and we're now hiring for that. So that's good as well. They service food processing, which is obviously an essential business. And that's been it's been great to be able to be lucky enough to have a business sector that could do that. So I serve any business sector. My contracts are from fractional CFO firms, finance firms, tech, whatever, because it's the skill sets that I bring to it are universal. It's really about hiring the right people, putting the infrastructure in place, and then offboarding to a leadership either identified internally or we recruit externally that fits the company's culture. That's what I do.
Awesome. Thank you, John. Hey, quickly bring us home, Sarah. We don't want to forget you.
Thanks so much. I'm Sarah Singer. I'm the chapter executive for ACG Austin San Antonio. I've been with ACG Austin San Antonio for 14 years now. And I am sheltering at home, social distancing with my husband of 20 odd years. I'm gonna get in trouble for not remembering the exact number. Tom Singer, and my wonderful daughter, Kate, who just graduated from high school, and we are keeping our fingers crossed that she will be off to Dartmouth in August.
Awesome, thank you, Sarah. So I really appreciate you guys humoring me in doing that. One of the reasons I did that, and consider it part of the presentation, if you will, is as you go through and you hear the human dynamic side of all this, right? We know it inherently, but until we start really talking business with people and realize there is no line between business and personal anymore. You know, just a couple of the topics that came out, several, you know, stressing about school next year, a couple of high school seniors that graduated and they missed out on all that. So there's all this emotions with that often with times you bring into the workplace. There's several people talked about self-care, just living at home with your spouse and your kids in very closely cloistered, you know, arrangement is stressful in and of itself. So all kinds of things that you don't usually think about when it comes to running a business, but now it's just hitting us full force. So good for us to keep in mind, especially for Carrie, did you have something to say? Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute.
I don't want to interrupt the flow of your thoughts, but if you would like, we have 2 9-minute breakouts. If you would like to have at least one of those, if not 2, because you're kind of short on time, you are welcome. So let us know what works for you, okay?
Awesome. Appreciate that. So guys, the way we were set up is at 12:50, we're going to go to a breakout for 9 minutes and then have a second breakout. I'm going to take the first one, Carrie, just because that took a little longer than I wanted, but I think it was so powerful. And so we'll keep a breakout to talk about, we'll give you a couple of choices as we go. A couple of things that I wanted to touch on, Christine suggested 2 of them. One was, she says she's focusing on things she can control. And that's one thing that many of these CEOs in all of our CEO forums are learning the hard way. We want to be abreast of all the news. We want to keep focused on what's going on. We want to know the numbers. but man, that can be exhausting if you're staying on top of everything associated with this thing. It's changing daily. And then you add, if you're a social media person, which thankfully I'm not other than LinkedIn, if you follow social media and you get involved in the, whatever side of whatever argument you're on, there's always drama. And there's a lot of things that you can't control there. And I guess my plea to you is man, if you decide to take a break from the drama, you can relieve your state of mind substantially, and encourage your team to do the same thing. I know it sounds crazy. You can't stay, on the one hand, you think you can't stay abreast of everything that's going on if you don't pay attention, but you don't have to watch CNN or Fox 24/7 to know what's going on. You could read, if Pat was in charge, you could read Texas CEO Magazine and keep abreast. But things like that. The other thing that Christine also mentioned was this concept of self-care. I think those two topics are related, but we used to feel guilty, and I'll speak for myself. I used to feel guilty if I took an afternoon off, or even if I took a weekend off. And what this has taught me is I'm going 24/7 most days of the week. And if you're anything like me, I'm sure you all came into this call right after another Zoom call. You probably got one right after it. For some reason, we feel like we can go back to back to back since we're not having to travel to go to the next meeting. But man, that's so dangerous. And give yourself the license, if you will, to take a break, go get a massage, go for a walk. Just even on one of these calls, you can go for a walk if you really want to. And the same goes for your team. So everything we just talked about, we're all executives on this call. Our teams are having the same challenges, if not worse, right? And so I'm really trying to encourage my team not to burn out and to try to have some of those self-care moments. And we're doing a lot around employee engagement and things to try to keep the team motivated. I'd love to hear your thoughts on some of these topics as well. So why don't we do that? We talked about self-care, things you can control, and employee engagement. I'd like to open it up and see what are some of the things that you guys have seen that have worked well, or maybe some challenges that didn't work so well. Remind you, we are recording this, so please keep, don't be too open with your confidential information, but anything you'd like to share. And I'm not afraid to call people out, so.
I would say, one of the things that you hear a lot about is empathy. And so, especially when you're leading people, that we realize we all have these crises going on, these micro crises at our home. So it sounds like a bit of a cliche. You still have to get the mission done if they're working, but really let them know that, hey, listen, we understand that things are not going to be at the same traction level we had previously. We want you to know that's okay. But we honestly need to, we need to understand sincerely what struggles you're having, and let the company take some of that off of you. And so I know there's a personal aspect, you talk human to human, but it really impacts the mission side as well, obviously. And I think that's something that I've really tried to put into my sales leaders as well, is to really understand that, even though we have our numbers, our plans, and our objectives we need to hit, the reality is there has to be some expectation, there's feedback beyond their control. This COVID thing is real. And so boards need to understand that. And I think they do, all right? They read the newspaper, but within the sales world, they still say, well, you still got to hit your number. So you had to get that transition of saying, okay, that's just not possible. So what is the new norm? What is an objective? Why do you have a sales team? And it is to keep the customers engaged with you, even though you're not necessarily giving the same revenue expectations. And trying to set those expectations. I don't know if that's very clear, but it's not just understanding what's going on in their personal lives for the purpose of feeling good. It's also a practical thing that's going to impact your plans. You want honest feedback. You don't want them to snow you that things are going to be better than they are. I need to know what's really happening, the ground truth, if you will, so we can make a genuine plan of what to expect.
I read something and shared it with my team, and it said, we're not working from home. We're surviving a pandemic and trying to get our jobs done. And so I continue to emphasize that to my team, that yes, we have always been a distributed team. Yes, we have always been remote enabled, but this is a completely unprecedented circumstance. And we are all in this to survive together. And the fact that we can get our jobs done is kind of a bonus.
My view is I have never seen so many people so overwhelmed that I have seen people working their way through grief and trying to find their way out. I have found them so overwhelmed from having to teach their children, attempt to do their jobs, and work from inside their houses. And from my view, that empathy has become so critical in realizing many of us are a little bit older probably, and our children are a little more grown. And I don't think, to a certain extent, we may not realize what's happening in a house on any given day as the 7-year-old comes running in the room with the math problem. And they are trying to be on Zoom and having a meeting and all of the rest of it. So I'm really interested in hearing about the strategies that people are using within their organizations to try and calm the waters, keep people focused and moving forward.
So, Pat, let me mention a couple things we've seen, and Shrew, I want to get back to you in just a second. By the way, first of all, on Christine, she is is amazing at what they do. They came in and did a marketing refresh for us over the last 2 months, so I can't thank Christine enough and the work that her team has done. You know, there is a line there. You mentioned keep them motivated, keep them. You didn't say this, but keep them working. There's a line there, right? There's a red line at some point where they're going to reach that red line of going too hard. I used to say, well, how can we bottle this up? This energy that my team has and the things that they're doing has just been amazing. How do I bottle it up and save it for a rainy day? And then I started thinking, wait a minute, what if I'm pushing them too hard now? What if they're going to flatline along the way? So there is definitely a balance there. Drew, you wanted to say something?
Sure. So you asking me? Yeah, no,
yeah.
I just, so essentially when this started happening around February, March, I write a blog called Monday Morning Cybersecurity. I started studying internationally just to write my blog. And one of the blogs I wrote, I said, hey, how do the guidance for small and large businesses during COVID-19, and picked up some of the points and looked at how corporations are doing. One of the things we did is that we, some of with our clients, we have this, just like a coffee meeting, coffee breaks, lunch breaks, almost spread throughout every Wednesday we have a coffee break, 8 to 8:30, 8:30 to 9. Then we have a lunch break, 12 to 12:30. And just, we don't even speak about work. There is nothing related to work. It's just like what you do, painting, hobbies, everything external. And we are all in the conference with just normal clothes, you know, no dressed up, nothing, just a house, t-shirts and everything. Just be at home kind of thing. That's what we studied. Second thing is that one of the areas which will say, hey, do your employees know what's needs to be? The point is like test home working technology. One of the companies offered like external screens to the employees, saying that, hey, do you have just laptop? Do you have external screens? We'll give you the largest screen to take care of you. Simple thing, but everybody found it that, hey, they went back and got one screen extra for them, just a bigger screen to work from home than working from the small screen, able to extend the displays and all that. But those kind of the things, I did write it in my blog, and I'm seeing corporates doing it. That was really happy feeling, you know. We'll keep it short.
Awesome, thank you. Someone else was going to say something. Was it Dave?
And some of these issues, oddly, are not new. As I was listening to this and thinking through my own experiences, I hired a guy years ago at Temple Inland who, when I was looking for a deputy and someone says, oh, well, at a meeting, someone said, you need to talk to this guy. This guy turned out one of those people that if you check him out, they say, hire him and then figure out what to do with him, just don't lose him. But he had a host of personal problems revolving around a wife who had some real issues. And we sat down and talked a couple of times. And I said, look, I cannot solve all your personal problems, but I will create an environment, as long as you're in this building, we'll take care of you. We'll take that load off of you. We will be as supportive as we can professionally. I don't know your wife. I don't know your circumstances, And I learned years ago, always stay out of the middle of other people's relationships because it will never end well if you don't. But the issue, I think, is, in part to Jaru's point, what can you do within the confines of your professional arrangement that will take care of the people there and lessen the number of things that are on their plate that they will roll around in their mind even if they don't want to. We are not parents, children, nannies, you name it. We try and provide a supportive environment, and the deal is we want to support our people, but there is a point beyond which you're probably making a mistake and making it worse, and you have a grossly diminishing return. I see John on his head. Thank you, John. Figure out what your limits are.
I think today,
Lori?
I think today boundaries are gone, to your point. We're talking with employees about much more than we used to. And we just actually, one of our team members last Thursday was notified that her grandfather was in the hospital with pneumonia because of COVID, and 2 days later he died. And she has other family members who have COVID as well. And so, you know, I think this goes back to just human decency at this point. And that's, as we've talked about, empathy, compassion, but really flexibility, and giving employees and team members great latitude, and clients for that matter. I mean, we're having to be flexible with our clients right now because we're on the same boat. So I think empathy goes just a long way in having upfront, frank conversations. And we've all, I think, are being pushed much more than we are used to in our corporate environments to do that. And so it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out once we get out of COVID, and if we're going to even be managing the same way again. Because I think right now I think the rules are out the window at this point.
That's a great point, Lori. I've been using the term meet you where you are. And so whether it's a new client or a current client or just candidate or whatever, I want to meet them where they are, whether that's how much fee they pay or what they pay up front, or whether it's don't even tell them anything. What do you need now that maybe it's not talent related or whatever your business is related? So I interrupted somebody who was going to say something.
I was going to say one quick item, and this is just personal discussion between my wife and I and also some friends. It's so easy to get stuck in your home. You're supposed to be at home. Your groceries are deliverable. Everything is happening at home. You get out of bed, you pull up your cell phone, you look and see what's going on first thing before you even get out of bed. Then you get up, put on your clothes maybe, go upstairs and turn the computer on. And then you read CNN, Fox, all of this news just hits you and just slams you. If you can, before you get involved in your activities, just go outside. It's amazing if you're away from the news and the stuff for 10 or 15 minutes and go outside and just sit and watch the birds sing for a little while. Take the dog for a walk, anything you can do. There exists a whole world out there that seems to disappear when you go straight from your cell phone to your computer and then to bed at night and do it over again the next morning. And that's some of the big things I've been talking with my friends and encouraging them as well to do.
I love it. Hey guys, we've got about, let's call it 6 more minutes before we want to go to a breakout. And I'd like to talk about a couple of things that I think are relevant. One is as a couple of you have mentioned, using this as an opportunity to make change, whether it's reprioritize our own way of thinking or maybe some things within our business. Maybe it's pivoting our business substantially. I'd love to hear from you. What are you guys seeing to, with your business or your personal lives, to come out of this stronger, whether it's, I use the word play offense, whether it's stop doing something that you were doing before, whether it's stop traveling so much, anything like that you've seen that you'd like to continue doing, or things that you've shifted to pivot?
I'll say one of the things I'll tell you is that if you can find the time, we talked about different coping mechanisms, but everybody's so in the businesses today, we're so in the day of trying to get cash flow and take care of people, and that if you can find the time, which I've been able to do with my 2 companies recently, pull aside for a couple hours and talk about what is this company going to look like 3 and 5 years, because nobody's thinking that. You're so, ordering groceries, the whole bit. And I couldn't believe it. It was almost like a valve relief, because so let yourself go there, I mean, what is this, I mean, what are we doing here? You know, where do you want to be? I mean, and that's not, I know that's probably more into what you do, Christine, with more long-term strategy versus what I typically do with the tactical, but it's really important because I just found them getting ground down into the minutia, you know, and not having the same, in other words, the same amount of effort they put in that would get results before isn't happening now. They have to work a lot harder for similar results. And so taking a break from that and giving them a vision in these small companies of where they want to be, where the company wants to be, not just the CEOs, but everybody in the organization. And it was a fun, I mean, it was a good exercise. I don't know, fun, it might, you know, still work, but it, you know, and we're doing it on Zoom, of course, right? So nothing, here's the irony. I've never even met some of my clients. It's all been through Zoom, which is typically, it's very kinetic, you know, obviously sales. So that's one thing I would tell you that we're going to continue doing is talking about the 3- and 5-year plan.
As part of Kurt's CEO forum that I've been participating in for a while, a couple of people strongly recommended that I read the book Traction.
Yeah.
And it was the first nonfiction book that I can remember reading that was not assigned reading from college or grad school. It might be the only unassigned nonfiction I've ever read. And it has led to giving me a chance to work both on and in the business and really think about how do we plan for scale? Do we want to scale? How and where and when? And right people, right seats, right processes, all of those things have been something that I've been able to spend some time focusing on as well. I don't enjoy it, but I'm going to do it anyway.
Good. Somebody else.
Carrie, you're on mute if you're trying to talk to us.
What I really think we need to concentrate on is really looking at opportunities during this period. There's just really a lot of opportunities, and when we change our core thinking to, you know, what can I get out of this? What can I find? What can I gain from this? I think one of the big things is that we have new ways of connecting to each other, not only through Zoom and other things from other places, but also at home while we're stuck at home. And when we start developing those abilities to really be curious about the people that are around us and really ask them questions. For example, my kids and I go for a walk in the afternoon now, and I ask them, you know, well, you know, if you could go anywhere, where would you like to go? And one of my kids said Easter Island, and it just opened up a whole conversation. So I think practicing, you know, really listening to people and watching how they, you know, what they say and what they're, you know, how they're acting and their tone of voice, and being curious and asking open-ended questions really helps us connect better, and then we connect better in the outside world too. So just looking for those opportunities, I think, is really important during this uncertain season.
Yeah, I'd be interested in, maybe it's John, maybe it's Bill, I'm not sure. When we think about sales, John, you mentioned earlier, people are, there's still sales to be had, we just have to work harder. And to Carrie's point, a lot of people aren't buying perhaps, but they still have their own fears, their own thoughts. So if we reach out to them in an empathetic way, we ask how they're doing, we find different ways to connect on a human level. Does that then lead to sales? Is that the approach we should be taking in the market?
It's a longer cycle, right? So, I mean, that's what I was talking about earlier with adjusting the expectations. I mean, there's transactional sales, there's longer term sales, obviously enterprise sales, all kinds of different, but any kind of selling right now, this is an opportunity to connect. If the business that you normally do, the type of customer clients you have are still in business and still operating, let's put it that way, then they have a need for your service probably if they were buying before. So those are the people you should focus on now. Probably it's where you're gonna have the most success longer term. Now that may not hit for, you know, 3 or 4 quarters beyond what you normally hit. But if you're not doing that now, and you talk about what can you do in this downtime, how about forging a stronger relationship with the client now to understand their business? What's the downside? What else are you doing? So I've asked my guys to do that, to really think about, you know, move, in all cases, move from the transaction into something broader. You know, what is the plan? Choose 10, let's go deeper on them, on what that is. You know, they usually have 2 or 3 connections with that client. Let's get 10 or 15, let's figure out how it works. You know, with Zoom, you know, there's actually Zoom fatigue right now. It was easier a month or 2 ago. So I would tell you there's things you can do. Obviously, we were talking about this earlier also, your infrastructure. Usually when I come into a firm, if they're growing or stagnating or whatever, people just want to see quick, traction on revenue, right? So this gives us a chance to really take the time to build the infrastructure they need, whether that's one seller now or 100 or what have you, and not feel guilty about it, right? There's nothing you can do. Even my guys in Texas now, we're talking about we're gonna have to pull them back and not let them travel again, as you can imagine, right? Because of their safety. So what do you do with that time? Well, then I've laid out a plan for how to deal with that. But 80% of it is always going to be talking to the clients, engaging for the clients to engage with you. That's probably not a great answer, as far as the sales go. Like, come on, Spencer, I need revenue. I got it. But your expectations for revenue, that speed to revenue has to be elongated. I don't know how else to put it.
But people are doing business. I mean, we are adding clients once again as people crawl out of reptilian brain survival mode, move through mammalian brain, and finally get back to sapiens brain. And they look around and say, yeah, it's an excrement storm, but life continues. So I'm going to go out there in a poncho. So things are more difficult, but we are writing contracts. And, I'm actually the goofball that actually expanded my sales team about a month ago. Not at the beginning of this process because everybody was shell-shocked, but most of the people who are in my space are still in defensive crouch. And the beautiful blessing of this whole thing is that it's kind of just like we're stepping back and reevaluating life. People are looking at all their business relationships, all of them. And things that in the past they kind of knew, no, that wasn't the doctor I really liked. It wasn't the gym I really liked. It wasn't the lawyer I really liked. Sadly, in a lot of cases, it wasn't the spouse I really liked, but pretty much everything is on the table as people are reevaluating life and vendors and partners. So this is kind of like an Oklahoma land grab. I mean, if you actually believe you've got a superior product or service, this is the time to be doubling down on your marketing and sales investments in my book. Because things that they knew weren't healthy, but they weren't really, it wasn't an acute pain, everything's on the table now. The CFO is being tasked with look at everything, which means
so
gotta be there.
So Bill, let's make that our small group topic. So Sarah's going to put us into small groups. I don't know if you're going to do 2 or 3 groups, Sarah, but either one's fine. I think Shrew has got to leave here shortly, so you'll have an even number if you do 3 groups. Thanks, Shrew, if you're leaving.
Just one thing, Kurt, I want to share. Can I ask you?
Hurry.
Yeah. So just to guys, before I leave, we have developed a training called Occupational Safety and Reopening Safely. It's a free training. I can share the demo with the people who like to have it, and it's a full training of 40 minutes. Takes you through the CDC guidelines for reopening and all that. If it's useful, it's a free. I can share with anybody who's interested. I'll send the snippet or a demo with everyone. If you're interested, I'll share the full file with you guys. Okay, just to let you know. Thank you, Kurt.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shrew. So we're going to split into small groups. Let's give us, it's 1:08, so maybe make it 6 minutes, Sarah, so we have enough time to wrap up when we come back. So it's a relatively quick amount of time. Let's talk about ways that we can play offense, whether it's, as Bill was saying, whether we're doubling down on our sales team, whether it's what we did was build our marketing foundation with Christine's team, whether it's making key hires because now there's more talent and better talent out there than you could have gotten before. Things like that. Let's hear about that. And it looks like a couple of people have to leave early, but let's we'll
just in case people are leaving early, I would let me go ahead and give our little closing. Thank you so much for coming. I really do appreciate it. We're planning on doing this next month. We'll probably the same time, but we'll send you out an announcement on that. We'd love to have you back. We're doing the mastermind in 2 weeks from now. I think it's on the 14th. Love to have you there. We would love to have your your thoughts. I'll send out a letter on if the format, or actually you can fill it out right here. Look at there. Thank you so much, Sarah. And just kind of give some feedback right this second for about half a minute if you want to. I'm going to give you about 30 seconds. If you get around to it, if not, no worries. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and end it because we don't have much time.
All
And
right,
we'll look
so,
at those. It looks like we got some positive reactions. Great. Interested in my mastermind. Oh yeah, okay, so got some interest in mastermind. So that'll be probably a small group, and we'll just spend a little bit more time doing this kind of stuff that that Kurt is doing today, and just diving into things more deeply. Susan, would you, and I will send the letter out getting your opinions, and you're welcome to reach out to me too. Be sure to save the chat box so you have everybody's email and stuff. Susan, would you like to say another word before we give it over to the breakouts?
Just a big thank you to both you and Kurt and to Sarah for coordinating. I think this has been a great start to something that's new to ACG, and I would love to see it continue. So if you know others that would benefit from sampling this and participating, please bring them next time with you.
Yes, we're kind of looking for that, you know, growth-minded, growth type companies, CEOs, C-suite, and owners. And Sarah, thank you so much for all your help in this, and Kurt, thank you too. And we'll come by for one last goodbye at the end, but I wanted to kind of get that taken care of before we dive into the breakouts.
Hey, you know what? Why don't we, instead of doing breakups, let's talk about it here, because we only have 4 minutes. It's going to be really kind of a hodgepodge if we do that. So Bill shared a little bit about what he's doing for offense. Jay, how about you guys? I don't know when you left Roadwire. Is it something you want to talk about?
Advantage in our supply chain. So we spend a lot of time contacting our customers of our competitor and gaining market share where a competitor was not able to serve their needs. So right. I mean, these are times that you can really capitalize on your strengths and satisfy customers, and they'll remember you for what you're able to do in their time of need. So I'd say get out there and knock on doors that closed before and see if they can be reopened.
Love it. Susan, how about you? What are some of the secrets you've done? I know you've got an empire there at Insperity.
Well, we have an empire of knowledge and insight and data, if you will, you know, through serving so many clients nationwide. And it's been interesting to see what areas of utilization have been so high, and how that might translate and a value prop to, you know, to a client to be. So we've been able to tell a lot of stories around how we've helped clients navigate, whether it was the PPP loan, whether it was, you know, structuring for repayment, whether it was temporary layoffs, furloughs, terminations, how to keep culture up. But overall, what we tried to do from the front end was to provide plenty of thought leadership and resources. And that was open to everybody, client or not, just a pay it forward mentality. And then to nurture those relationships that we built through doing that by continuing to stay in touch. And I think, you know, oftentimes we see all this opportunity and it's like a candy land. We don't really know where to start. But I think some things like automation, you know, the drip campaigns that we've created, and webinars that have you know, a registration attached to it, so that you can stay in touch with people that you've touched along the way. It's all in the follow-up.
Great. Lori or Pat, anything that you guys have seen with some of your clients that are taking an offensive approach? And then it might be the last thought before we wind up.
So, well, some of our clients are using this time that they didn't feel like they had before to implement strategy. And so that's been a lot of fun to work with companies, because strategy, I think, inside companies is a luxury, to really take the time and explore and look at things from the inside out. And it's been a lot of fun for us, at least, trying to facilitate that for them. And so they're pretty energized with, you know, what's ahead. And so it's nice to be around that energy of positivity when, you know, often we're not seeing that in other places in our life. So the ones that feel like they can go forward are really, you know, pressing it to go forward fast.
Great to hear. Well, Carrie, we've got about 30 seconds left, so I'm going to turn it over to you and Susan and Sarah if you guys want to wind it up, and we'll get everybody out of here on time.
Thank you, Kurt, so much. That was really enlightening, and I loved the way you got everybody involved. So thank you, and kind of giving us some ideas on how we're going to frame it as we go forward. So I learned a lot, and we're going to be talking about things, and I'm going to get input from y'all, and hopefully, you know, by next time we'll probably have more people, and we'll be more organized. And so thank you so much for helping us launch this, and for all of, you know, being open and talking about all the things that are going on with you and giving each other ideas. I really do appreciate it. Susan, Susan and Sarah, do you have any final thoughts? Susan?
So stay tuned. Other upcoming ACG opportunities, they are infinite. So just watch for your emails. Sarah's great to get them out and keep that communication going. Thank you, Carrie, for all the great work pulling this together.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you so much for your help. Sarah, do you have anything before we get off?
No, thank you all for joining us today, and I look forward to seeing you again sometime soon.